This video brought to you by EquestrianCoach.com, the world's leading equestrian education source.
This was Europe, late 1950s, 1960. That's very representative of Europe, and the best of the best were riding. This is in London, in White City. This is Mary Mare Chapeau, and you'll see she was a stylist they wrote articles about. Look at her leg position, never moves. She's close to the saddle. Very good use of the whip there at that water obstacle. And this was a wait-a-bit mare named Tomboy. Very, very good mare. Now we have Raimondo Denzeo. They were the Denzeo brothers. They still are legends of the sport of show jumping. This is a very ordinary horse called Gowan Girl. You can see her hollow-backed, swishy-tailed. Bill Steinkraus, after I left the team, luckily took over the ride on the horse that I had, St. John, that lovely thoroughbred horse. Billy had great success with the horse, but he took a tactful ride. He was very hot. Here was quite a high-profile Jaroszynski German rider. He was a friend of mine. You'll see they rode with a longer rein, deeper in the saddle, farther behind the motion. Now we have Alvin Schakamilla, won the Olympic Games in 1976. Paul Schakamilla's brother. He was one of the riders of the century. He'd win and win and win and win, and he was very different than Paul. He was both a great horseman, but he was meticulous in every detail. And we have Winkler here on a second horse. It wasn't Halle. It was, as I see here, a very scopy, very careful horse. I like it better than I remember. This would be the type of horse for today's training. Lengthen that martingale, and this might have been a better horse than we thought. He was my idol and my model that I modeled myself after, Piero Denzeo on the rock. He had the great ability to follow a horse right to the base of the fence and teach the horse to bascule himself, teach the horse to improve his arc. Very distinct method of training. And here we have Alvin, who is just a great German rider. Very different than my style of riding. The sun shone on him. He just won and won and won, and all the girls loved him. He had everything. Peter Robeson, he really adhered to educated riding in those days. He was a theoretician, a stylist in those days. He was talked about all over the world. Being a Brit that was an intellectual rider. We have the other Denzeo brother, Raimondo, on a thoroughbred horse, Posilipo. He also was a beautiful rider, but he placed horses more than Piero. He manipulated. He'd shorten them, stop them, start them, and again, Olympic gold medalist, world champion. The two brothers won everything, but this brother had a slightly better record. But I preferred the method of the other boy, Piero Denzeo. There was a quick late stop, and you'll see what's interesting here is the footing. This was also in an infield of a big stadium, and there was no discussion about footing in those days. You'll see hot, deep mud, horses slipping and sliding. Nobody ever talked about it. And this is Mr. Softy, an almost thoroughbred horse, but he was a wonderful horse with David Broom. A lot of chrome, a lot of white on him. But he was very, very careful. He was a brilliant show horse, this Mr. Softy. Close to thoroughbred. He wasn't a thoroughbred horse, you can see that, but he was close to thoroughbred horse. But very fast, very careful with David. A big, big winner, a very famous horse in that era. Always a threat in any class. We're back in Aachen here, and this for those days was a very technical line. Two, three, four strides, one stride, 2, 3, 4, 5, and horses did that every which way. Let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. And it rides different with each one. Here's Winkler again on that very careful gray. Let's see what he does. He's an adder. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. He did the 6 and the 4 and had a rick. But that, believe it or not, in 1960 was a very sophisticated line. And you'll see they did it every which way. 3, 4, 4. 3, 4. And a big rick. And we didn't know even probably what we were doing. This is my third horse called High Noon, owned by Mrs. A.C. Randolph of Upperville, Virginia. He was a 7/8 bred horse. He was very hot, very attractive. He was not a great horse. Here's Winkler on another horse, not his legendary Hella. And there was that beautiful wall at the end. You see, the fences were very massive. They're bigger than they look because they're so massive. That was a very easy little vertical with ample ground lines. That was really like a free fence. I remember that fence very well. And this looks like Winkler. Winkler had a very distinct style. He gripped with his knees, his legs swung back. He was not a stylist, but he was a great champion. That's Hugh Wiley on Trail Guide. A wonderful, wonderful thoroughbred horse from the holdover from our cavalry. Now we have Piero D'Anzio again. He loved these big Irish 7/8 3/4 bred horses, and he taught them all to go the same way. This was not his best horse. This was a good horse, but not the Rock. But he was very much of the same breeding of the Rock. We're back in Dublin at the RDS, and we have the horse with the flying tail who jumped water like no other horse. They're two very narrow styles. You'll see, if you look carefully, you'll see some very big and interesting banks, ditches, natural fences at all these shows. They go from one town to the other, Aachen, Dublin, Lucerne. more like Lucerne, where they had every possible natural fence. There must have been in that ring 50 fences, and many of them banks, different types of banks, different types of ditches, grobs. Lucerne was Switzerland until very recently. Even a little show in Switzerland would have every possible natural fence, uphill, downhill to a degree, but it was the variety of fence. It was simply a maze of jumps.